We're here with Claude Wilton, who is going to tell us the story of his service in the United States Army. He has a bit of an unusual story to tell, which I'll let him fill us in on. Where were you born?
I was born in Germany.
In Germany?
And we escaped from Germany just before the war started, in 1939. In 1938, went to Shanghai, China. And that's where I grew up.
How long were you in China?
I was 11 when we left Germany. I was 19, so it's 8 years in China.
While you were in Shanghai, I understand that you were there, during the occupation of Shanghai?
Wait, when we got to actually, when we arrived in Shanghai, Shanghai was occupied by the Japanese, who occupied the entire coastline of China before we got there. So it was really not the Chinese who let us in, but the Japanese. Even though they were allied with Germany and Italy at the time, they still let us in. And we were in a ghetto without barbed wire. They called it the designated area. It was so different from anything that we saw. We saw people dying on the street, poor people, begging. Really no shelter there. When it was cold, it was freezing in the wintertime. They froze to death. So it was not the greatest surroundings that I was brought up in. Even though we didn't have much, we had more. We had a house, we had an apartment, one room.
And what are a couple of your most memorable experiences?
My most memorable experience was when we came home, when we came here from Shanghai. Because everybody on the ship was in the same boat. We all, doesn't sound right, but everybody was in the same position. And we came in, obviously, from the West Coast, San Francisco. And that morning, when we were supposed to arrive, everybody was out on deck, looking. And eventually, we saw a glimpse of the Bay Bridge, San Francisco Bay Bridge, and everybody applauded. When we went under that bridge, I don't think there was a dry eye on the ship. Everybody was so happy to be here.
And then when did you come to the United States?
We came here in 1947.
Okay, so it was after World War II, right?
World War II, yeah.
Okay, and so you were 19 when you arrived in the United States, and why did you decide to join the Army?
Well, I didn't decide to join the Army. I was drafted.
Okay.
And the U.S., even though I was born in Germany, I really didn't care to be a German citizen. I wasn't an American citizen yet, but I had to join the Army. When they called me, I went.
Okay.
It was my country, and as a matter of fact, it was an honor to go in.
Where were you living when you were drafted?
We lived in Chicago.
In Chicago?
Yeah. Now, we came into San Francisco originally. We only stayed there for about 2 weeks or so, and our guarantors lived in Chicago, so that's how we ended up there.
What was your rank and your branch of service?
My rank in that branch of service, I was a corporal in the U.S. Army.
And where were you stationed?
Well, first I went to school. I was stationed. I went to basic training in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. I went to signal school in Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, which was very nice. And from there, I went to Georgia. It's been quite some time ago, so
Mm-hmm.
and from there I went to Korea.
It was during the Korean War.
Oh yeah, it was during the Korean War. We were stationed actually in no man's land. We were north of where the inhabitants were. So anything north of us was North Korea. And we had our setup over there. And we did repairs for the equipment that the soldiers brought in when it wasn't working anymore. Radar maintenance, where we actually had to go out to take a look at the radar sets when they, just for routine maintenance most of the time, but when they quit working we had to go there any time of day or night.
You weren't a citizen when you were in the Army, but you became a citizen afterwards.
Yes.
And when did you become a citizen then?
Oh, about 2 years after I was discharged.
Is there anything that you'd like to add about your memories of your service?
My memories of my service, obviously when we were in the war zone, it was quite hectic there. Because at the time, newly married, I wanted to get out as fast as possible. And I didn't want to sign up for 5 or 6 years. But I have no complaints about my life the way it is right now, the way it turned out, and I'm a happy American citizen.
Well, thank you.